The film begins in 1950 in America, aboard a plane flying through the sky. Inside is a businessman named Zaza Korda. Zaza is extremely wealthy and has everything: money, influence, and companies. This made him many enemies around the world who wanted to get rid of him. He had already survived 5 assassination attempts, and since then, he stopped caring and learned how to cheat death. We see Zaza enjoying the flight, reading a book. He was accompanied only by his assistant and the pilot. Suddenly, Zaza felt a strange movement on the sides of the plane. Before he could figure out what was happening, an explosion occurred near the aircraft, killing his bodyguard. Zaza immediately realized this was the 6th assassination attempt. He quickly rushed to the cockpit and saw the plane's wings on fire. He asked the pilot what they would do to land safely without dying. The pilot got angry and told him that he hadn't taken any safety precautions before taking off, and added that if they survived the landing, he would report Zaza to the police because he was insane. Zaza stared at him coldly and said, "You're fired." Then he pressed the eject button on the pilot's seat, launching him out of the plane, and took over the controls himself. Ahead of him was a cornfield, and he was forced to make an emergency landing there. The plane did land, but it was badly damaged. In a news broadcast, reporters talked about the crash and said rescue teams were searching for Zaza's body but hadn't found it. A journalist spoke about Zaza, describing him as one of the richest businessmen in Europe, famously known as Mr. 5% because of his deals in the weapons and aviation industries, along with involvement in bribery and other scandals. It was said that he had been married 3 times and had 10 children, one of whom was a nun named Liesel. She hated him deeply and wanted nothing to do with him because she disapproved of her father's work. She claimed he built his fortune on lies and deception. Then we see Zaza in the middle of the cornfield, his face covered in blood from the crash, but he was still alive, and that was all that mattered to him. He began walking as if nothing had happened. He saw a journalist broadcasting the incident live on the radio, speaking about him as if he were dead. Zaza walked up and said, "I'm still alive, just injured. I'd like to go to the hospital, please." A little later, we see Zaza in the hospital, being served by more than 5 nurses. He spends his time relaxing in the bathroom, drinking alcohol as if he were at home. In another scene, a group of businessmen gathers. One of them declares that Zaza is the enemy of all Europe. Everyone agrees that they need to get rid of him, blaming him for the collapse of their country's economies. He adds, if Zaza continues doing the same thing, he would be the reason for a major war in Europe. On top of that, he evades taxes and doesn't pay customs on anything. Any country that tries to stop him, he sues in court. The man speaking said he was ready to do anything to get rid of Zaza, even if it meant killing him, and asked the council to vote on his proposal. Everyone agreed because they all wanted him gone. Later, Zaza left the hospital and returned to his home. Around this time, we see Liesel, his daughter, a kind and gentle-looking young woman, arriving at her father's mansion, dressed in a nun's habit and carrying only a small bag. When her father comes to speak to her, she's surprised to see him alive. She had been told he died in an assassination attempt. Zaza tells her he called her because he wants her to become his legal heir. He's decided to give her all his companies and assets, knowing that his enemies won't stop until they finish him off. He wants to disappear for a while and have her take his place as a trial run, especially since most people already believe he died in the latest attempt. Liesel asks why he chose her, and he replies that it's because she's the eldest, and more importantly, he deeply trusts her. He shows her large crates, hidden underground, explaining that these contain his final and most important project, which he calls the Phoenician plan. Then he introduces her to her 9 siblings. He tells her all their names, but she can't keep track. They all look the same, close in age, and there are too many of them. She stands up from the table, leans against the wall, and tells Zaza she once heard a rumor that he killed her mother and 2 of his other wives. Zaza defends himself, saying he could never kill a woman. Yes, he may have hired criminals before to do certain jobs, but he would never go as far as to murder one of his wives. He adds that he'll file a lawsuit against whoever spreads such lies. It's how he fights back and claims justice. He asks her to sit down so he can explain his project, the Phoenician plan. He wants to build an entire city, completely independent from the rest of the world, where only the wealthy would live. It would have its own railway station and a private canal. He shows Liesel the crates and explains. The first crate contains the dam construction plans. The second has the canal blueprint. The third contains tunnel plans. The fourth has worker agreements. The fifth includes shipping company documents. And the sixth holds banking agreements. But before he can finish explaining, one of his 9 sons lights arrows on fire and shoots them at the crates. An employee runs in to put out the fire, and Zaza steps in, hits his son, and grabs the bow from him. When he returns to Liesel to continue their talk, he finds a man named Bjorn sitting in the lounge. We discover that Bjorn is a professor and insect expert. Zaza likes having such a knowledgeable man around, but still has some suspicions about him. Zaza becomes paranoid, feeling like someone is out to kill him. He asks his servant to bring him a lie detector and tells Liesel about it. Liesel replies that she only eats bread and says she still hasn't agreed to his offer because next month she's due to officially become a nun at the church. Zaza suggests she delay her decision about taking vows and invites her, along with Bjorn, to have lunch outside in front of the village. The first thing Zaza did was give Bjorn a lie detector test. He found out that Bjorn wasn't lying and was, in fact, just an ordinary insect expert. Later, Zaza switched his bathroom with Bjorn's because he suspected his own might be poisoned. But he lied to Bjorn, telling him his bathroom was just too hot. He then called his servant and asked him to test his glass, and indeed, it turned out to be poisoned. The servant treated him immediately. After that, Liesel sent a letter to the church saying she was currently busy with her father, hoping she could eventually be free of this nightmare and return to church life. She started training with her father on how to manage wealth, even though she wanted to use the money for something good, to make up for all the harm her father had caused over the years. Zaza told her he controlled everything in the city where he planned to build his new project. Even the food and water were distributed under his conditions. Liesel was shocked by her father's controlling nature and asked why he was so harsh. He told her that when he was a child, he loved his nanny very much. But one day, she crossed the boundaries of her role, so she was punished and fired. Since then, Zaza had become cold and detached, no longer caring even about his children, not even Liesel. He gathered his children again and rented them a house next to his own so they could live independently. We then see Liesel visiting her siblings there, accompanied by Bjorn, who is now their teacher and teaches them everything about insects. Back to Zaza. He talks to Liesel about her mother and tells her she was murdered, but not by him. Although the police claimed it was a natural death, Zaza was convinced his enemies had killed her to get revenge on him. He apologizes to Liesel for letting her grow up without a mother. Zaza also reveals he suspects his brother and business partner, Nubar. He tells Liesel he's going to sue Nubar, but only if she agrees to sign the documents and become his official heir. Liesel agrees. Zaza calls his servant and tells him to wake the lawyer immediately to get the papers signed. The next day, Zaza gathers all 10 of his children for lunch. Bjorn is also there and brings a new insect to continue his lesson, but the children are terrified. Zaza gets angry at them. He wants his children to be as tough as he is, and tells Bjorn not to bring bugs to the table because they're disgusting. Zaza begins teaching his children everything he knows. We learn from his words that not all of them are his biological children. Some are adopted. Liesel is surprised and asks why he would adopt children when he already had so many. In the next scene, we see a group of businessmen admiring a new type of nail that will dominate the market, and they believe this product could destroy Zaza's company. Back to Zaza. When he hears the news, he wakes Liesel up and tells her they have to board a plane in 10 minutes. He also decides to take Bjorn as his new assistant. Zaza mentions he hired 2 criminals to blow up the house after they leave. On the plane, Zaza gives Bjorn another lie detector test. Then he goes to change clothes and returns to speak with Liesel, asking her to get her passport ready. She asks if he has a passport too, and he replies that he has neither a passport nor a nationality. He says passports give people human rights, and he doesn't need that. He's rich enough, always on the move, and has no permanent home, as he's constantly running from enemies. Suddenly, they hear a strange sound near the plane. Zaza says he heard the same noise before the last assassination attempt, right before his assistant died. Bjorn starts panicking, but Zaza calms him down, assuring him the plane hasn't exploded. Liesel asks about the wooden box they brought on the plane. Zaza tells her he bought hand grenades for self-defense. They're cheaper than bullets. and he gives them as gifts to people he meets. Liesel is shocked but stays quiet out of fear of her strange father. Zaza arrives at a desert train station where he's waiting for Prince Farouk. He tells Liesel he's always watched over her. He never forgot her, no matter how it seemed. He was busy, yes, but he always got news about her from the people keeping an eye on her. Suddenly, they hear someone approaching from the mountain. Zaza thinks it's the prince and starts calling out to him. But then, someone opens fire. The driver rushes to fetch grenades but is shot and killed. Prince Farouk emerges from a tunnel and his assistant shoots down the attackers on the mountain. He gives Zaza a machine gun and gives Liesel a beautiful new dagger, taking her old knife. He then throws a grenade and invites everyone into the car, and they drive into the tunnel. In the final scene, they reach a dead end inside the tunnel and find their partners, Leland and Reagan, who are business allies of Zaza and Farouk in the big project. But they are visibly angry, realizing Zaza has been tampering with the documents. A big argument breaks out until Leland steps in and he and Reagan decide to withdraw from the deal. Before Zaza could leave, Leland and Reagan stopped him and proposed a basketball match. Whoever wins gets their way. Zaza agreed, and they brought out a basketball hoop to start the game. Leland and Reagan were on one team, while Zaza and Prince Farouk were on the other. The first team to score 5 points would win. We learned that Leland and Reagan used to be basketball players, while Zaza and Farouk had no idea how to play. The match begins. Leland easily scores the first point, then Zaza tries but fails. Reagan scores the second point, and when Farouk tries, he tosses the ball from below, making everyone laugh. Reagan and Leland continue playing and dominate the match. Meanwhile, Liesel is on a train talking to Bjorn, who asks her, "What are you expecting from Zaza?" She replies that she agreed to give her father a chance to prove he's a good parent. Bjorn, clearly drunk, asks if she'd ever consider marrying him someday. She gets angry and reminds him that she's a nun and can't be in a relationship. Bjorn gets upset and tells her not to look at him anymore. It becomes clear he might be a spy. Back to Zaza, who's frustrated over losing the match. He says that during the plane crash, he felt like he died for a minute and a half. Despite surviving many assassination attempts, that one changed him. It shook his life completely. He asked to speak with his daughter. Liesel arrives quickly, and Zaza tells her she's the best of all his children. He shares memories of the day she was born and why he named her after his grandmother. He tells her he loved her mother deeply, and when she died, he decided to take Liesel to a convent to be raised properly, because he feared for her safety. Now he feels sad because Liesel avoids relationships, and he seems genuinely regretful. His business partners start to suspect Zaza has a concussion and laugh at him. Zaza confronts them and proposes a challenge. If Farouk can score a basket from the end of the corridor, the deal continues. If he fails, Zaza will pay them 500,000 Swiss francs. Leland and Reagan see the money and instantly agree. Farouk gets nervous. He's never played basketball, but grabs the ball and walks to the end of the tunnel. Liesel stops him, prays for him, and wishes him success. At the same time, we see Zaza in a dreamlike world. He has a long beard, wears strange clothing, and carries a dead deer on his shoulders. He lays the deer in front of his 3 wives, slices its belly open, and golden coins pour out. Suddenly, Liesel's mother appears and tells him the truth, that Liesel is not his daughter. Zaza is shocked and refuses to believe it. Then he wakes up, back on the plane with Liesel. We find out Farouk actually made the basket. Zaza asks Liesel, "What did you pray for?" She replies, "Prayer isn't about the words. It's about being sincere and honest with God." Zaza is impressed by her wisdom and tells her she resembles him, even her eyes. She shows him a picture of Nubar and points out they have the same eyes. Zaza becomes irritated. It's clear he hates Nubar. In the middle of the conversation, Bjorn comes in and tells Zaza there's a call from his friend Bob. Zaza answers in French so no one else can understand and lies, telling Bob that Leland and Reagan agreed to pay for the losses from the nail deal and that they'll meet at the bar that night. Later, Liesel tells Zaza she understands French and gets angry with him for lying. She tells him this is his only chance to change how she sees him. Suddenly, Bjorn walks in holding a stick of dynamite. Zaza asks, "Where did you get that?" Bjorn replies, and Zaza says they'll need it soon. They check the timer and find there are only 18 minutes left. Zaza remains calm, the plane will land in 10 minutes, but Liesel and Bjorn are terrified of the possible explosion. That night, Zaza and his team arrive at Bob's bar, and Bob warmly welcomes them. Zaza gives him a hand grenade as a gift. Bob is happy Zaza managed to convince the brothers to pay for the losses. He takes them to his office, offers them hospitality, and they begin discussing business. Suddenly, a mysterious girl enters and hands a letter to Bob. He reads it and tells Zaza the handwriting matches his own. Zaza denies it at first, but eventually admits that he wrote the letter to convince Bob to attend the meeting and pay part of the damages. Otherwise, the project would collapse and the new nail company would dominate the market. Bob starts to consider whether to agree. At that moment, a violent gang called the Jungle Gang arrives. Their leader enters and threatens to kill the customers unless they hand over everything they have. People panic and give up their jewelry and watches. Then the gang hands out a catalog listing the illegal activities they offer. Bob sees this and loses it. He storms down from his office furious and demands they stop the violence. One gang member shoots at him. Zaza jumps in the way, taking the bullet himself and collapsing to the ground. Everyone rushes to help him, and the gang escapes just before the police arrive. Bob pulls out the bullet and thanks Zaza for risking his life for him. As a gesture of gratitude, Bob agrees to attend the meeting that night and pay part of the losses.